Hello and welcome to Microsoft Hates Greg. My name is Greg Deckler, and today this announcement came out. Basically, Microsoft's retiring Power BI Premium P SKUs. Now, gee, I wonder who could have predicted this. Oh, that's right. It was me who literally predicted this just a couple weeks ago with my video F64 versus P1, where I pointed out that you have to be a moron to buy an F64 SKU versus a P1 SKU, given the cost involved. Okay, before we get into this, I feel it incumbent upon myself to point out that the views I'm about to express in this video are solely my own. I have never felt the need to do that on this channel. The channel is literally called Microsoft Hates Greg. It's my opinions on things. But I feel the need to point this fact out, that these are only my opinions on things and nobody else's. So just let it be said that we're going to get real here for a while. And that's not generally the case in this channel. We create DAX exploding volcanoes and things like that. But this topic is just it's just pure villainy on the part of Microsoft, in my opinion. There's no other way to describe it other than just absolute villainy. Right? So let's get into this. All right, so Microsoft's retiring Power BI Premium P SKUs and replacing them with Fabric. Now, I've already pointed out in my F64 versus P1 video that you're going to pay more, right? You're absolutely going to pay more for a Fabric F64 SKU, which is the equivalent of a P1 SKU, right? It's going to cost you more just on the get-go, just even with a reserved instance. Not a lot more, but more, okay? But that's only for the compute, right? You still have to pay extra with Fabric for the storage, which if you use the entire entitlement for a P1 SKU, it's going to cost you about $2,000 more per month, about $24,000 per year, right? But it gets worse, right? Because, well, we'll get into it. There's so much to cover in this video. So they go and say retiring Power BI Premium, and they go through like new customers, existing customers with an EA, customers with an existing EA or without an EA, renew their Power BI Premium subscription until January 1st, 2025. Customers who have a renewal date after 2025 will need to replace their Power BI Premium capacity subscription purchase with the purchase of Fabric capacity at their end of their agreement. So without an enterprise agreement. Now, traditionally, how this has always worked with any of the Microsoft Cloud licensing is that if you purchase a license under the agreements of that license, if the license agreement changes, if the license changes, right, you're grandfathered into the old license agreement. Okay? That's how it's always worked. Trust me, CSP provider, we do this all the time. We've got customers with crazy old SKUs that you can't even find anymore, right? But they still have those and they're beneficial to them and they keep those agreements, right? They basically eliminate that. There's no grandfathering, right? There's no grandfathering at all for basically if you had a Power BI Premium SKU, you are going to be forced to have a Fabric SKU to replace it, which is going to cost you more. Okay, not just like nickels and dimes more, but significantly more. We're going to get into that as we go through this. This whole sovereign cloud thing, this is just talking about GCC, GCC High, and DoD, right? So basically, they're going to force you to pay more for the same thing, or even less, right? You don't get 100 terabytes of storage. You get less than that, and you pay more, right? It's even worse than that, right? And Manus, let's remember that name, right? So you come down here to this migrating to fabric capacity, right? Migrating to fabric capacity, impact on other Power BI licensing. Here's just the egregiousness of this is just unbelievable to me. So basically what they're saying here is that Microsoft Fabric Capacity is not compatible with Power BI Report Server. That is a bald-faced lie, okay? Like with Power BI Premium, you got the usage rights to be able to install and use Power BI Report Server, which you basically, if you didn't have Power BI Premium, you need to have a SQL Server Enterprise agreement with SA, which is now what you need to do, basically. So right here, SQL Server Enterprise with software assurance, okay? So they're taking that away from you with Power BI. So SQL Server Enterprise with SA is not an inexpensive product, okay? If I'm not mistaken, it's about 13 grand for SQL Server Enterprise with SQL Server Enterprise with 2 cores, right? 2 cores, $13,000. There it is, right there, $13,000 for that product. A P1 SKU gives you 8 virtual cores, which means you have the license rights to run SQL Server Enterprise with 8 cores to run Power BI Report Server. So that's going to cost you basically 70, 80 grand, right? 70, 80 grand. Now you have to add SA onto that, which is a third of the cost, per year. So now you're up to about 100K for the first year. And then, whatever, 30K, 25K, whatever it is, 25K for the other 2 years. So hundreds of thousands of dollars more on top of what you're paying extra for the storage costs, right? How this is acceptable to anybody is beyond me. Like, villainous. I can't think of a better word than just utter abject greed on the part of Microsoft to do this. And what kills me about this, right? What kills me about this is that the people that are being punished and being forced to pay these exorbitant amounts of more money for the same service that they received before under premium are the same people that bought into Microsoft. They supported Microsoft from the get-go, right? They gave Microsoft a modicum of like success within the data analytics space. These are Microsoft's early adopters and supporters, and Microsoft is basically punishing them, right? I mean, there are 3 things that should happen out of this, right? Number one, every Microsoft Power BI Premium customer should go to Snowflake and Databricks, right? Microsoft should lose all these customers. No customer should be with a software vendor that values them 0 amount, right? Microsoft doesn't value the fact that these customers bought in and supported their platform from the get-go. They value them nil, not at all. This is obvious, right? They're punishing those customers and making them pay more for the same service they received before, hundreds of thousands of dollars more per year. That's who wants to do business with a software company that does that? I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Second thing that should happen. Every Microsoft data platform MVP that is out there should resign immediately. Right? They should resign and protest over this heinous behavior by Microsoft, right? Immediately, because it's not acceptable. I have a lot of I'm coming up on my 1 year. I'm coming up on my 1 year anniversary of not being an MVP. And have to tell you, I have so many things to be thankful for. This would be the end for me if I was still an MVP. I would resign over this. I wouldn't be able to hold my head up, right? And like say that Microsoft is a good company for doing this, right? I would hide in shame over this. I think every MVP for the data platform should be ashamed of this behavior by Microsoft, and they should do something about it, right? And that's never going to happen, right? Because MVPs. But I'm telling you, and I've said a lot of things about the MVP program. I've caught a lot of flack about it, right? And they're like, "Oh, Greg, you're just bitter and this and that." Okay, here's a bet I'll do with you. Here's a bet. All right, I bet you that not a single MVP will stand up and say that this is wrong. There will be no public outcry over this from MVPs about how wrong this is, right? Won't be a single one of them. And for me, that very fact just basically makes me immune to anything that I would ever say about the MVP program because I'm obviously correct, right? If not a single MVP stands up and says that this is wrong by Microsoft, then what I say about the MVP program is absolutely 100% correct. I'll do you one better. If any MVP actually has the bravery to stand up and tell Microsoft publicly that this is wrong, they won't be an MVP next year. Won't be, right? Which again will prove my point about the MVP program. Third thing, I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV. But if I was a lawyer, the three words that would come to my mind would be class action lawsuit. That's how egregious this behavior by Microsoft is, in my opinion. This is terrible behavior. I'm ashamed. I've never been more disappointed and more ashamed of Microsoft than I am right now. That's all I had for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.